here with Grant Writing and Funding, and I'm super excited today to bring on one of my special friends and colleagues and peers, Dr. Cheri Westmoreland, and she is going to be talking about some great things today. You're also in the mentorship, so we're definitely going to get into that and some of the things that you've gotten from that, but we're going to talk about your business. We're going to talk about, being a freelance grant writer, and also we're going to talk about the 30 years of work that you've done with nonprofits, a lot of the lessons that you've seen nonprofits have learned or that they still need to learn. So we're going to definitely jump into all of that today. So welcome to the Grant Writing and Funding podcast, Cheri.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I really am.
This is so fun because we usually see each other at least twice a month because you're in the mentorship, but this is like a whole nother little podcast thing. It's a whole nother platform to talk to you and to hear the knowledge and the value that I know you share every single month, twice a month, with the other folks in the mentorship. So you get to share it on a larger platform here today. So thank you. I really do appreciate you coming on the show. And I know people are going to get a lot of value out of it.
Thank you.
Yes. So just a little bit of your history then. I just wanted to kind of talk about your background. I love hearing guests when they kind of share with how they got involved with nonprofits, but just to kind of give people a little bit of an idea where and situate them with where you are. You have 30 years of experience in higher education and working with nonprofits. Your business, Spirit Excel, really focuses on faith-based and community-based organizations. And you've done a lot of federal grant writing. And you also work at the University of Cincinnati as well, so as an instructor. So I think that's really awesome. You definitely have a lot of experience and you have a lot of knowledge to bring to nonprofits out there. So can you just kind of talk about you've been doing this for a long time as far as working within nonprofits. You've opened your business pretty recently though, but you've had so much success. So can you kind of talk about what got you interested in working with nonprofits and part of your journey to opening your business?
Okay, thank you. I started off in higher education. I worked in colleges and universities. And then I got the opportunity to work for a nonprofit doing college access work. And that was my first experience with working with nonprofits, but then having to come right in and write their federal grants. So, I got a whammy right there. I took the job in September. The grant was due, I think, that January.
Oh, wow.
I had to hit the ground running.
That was your first grant, a federal grant?
That was my first federal grant. Mm-hmm. Well, it's a very interesting story because I really learned the whole idea of relationships, mm-hmm. because I was afraid to write the needs section. So the organization contracted out the needs section and I just wrote the plan of operations and everything else. Mm-hmm. Well, they did not fund us based on the needs section, but the organization was tied to a well-known company in Cincinnati, and they sent an executive to the Department of Education. And they talked. I had to write out why I thought they had a misinterpretation of the information that I shared and refuted everything. And when I talked to our program manager from the federal government, she says, I didn't lose any of my grants. So the key thing that I learned was relationships.
Yes.
And those people who establish relationships with grantors, and especially people who are political, because I was in a very political environment, our grant was funded. And so my grants have been funded ever since. But my first experience was one where it wasn't funded, but then was funded after, because they said that there really isn't any kind of review or process, but things can happen if the right people ask for it.
I
So
love that.
that was that experience that I had. So that's how I started.
Mhm.
And I worked with that nonprofit for 10 years. And then I went back to the university, uh, working with a grant funded program. So I've been with, since 1993, been writing Department of Education grants. And they've been funded for 3 to 5 years. And so managing that, writing those grants, supervising the staff in those programs.
Wow, so much experience. And I love that because I love what you were saying about your first grant and then you had the conversation. And this is where, I encourage a lot of people too. But people always kind of miss that. So I think that you were so in tune to know, even if you got a no, well, let's look at what they said. Let's see who else we can talk to. Let's still advocate for this program, and maybe we do it through the business. Maybe we can get it funded through a sponsor. Maybe we go back to the federal grantor. Does anyone have relationships? Who knows who? They still may need to spend some money. Maybe we just need to tweak something. So I think that was you were so in tune to do that, and hardly anybody does that, right? So I love that you did that. And do you continue to advocate in those ways with those types of relationships and build those?
That's the one thing that I have found is if you, and you also talk about that in the mentorship, is getting to know the funders.
Yeah.
I had gotten away from that type of networking. And after being with you for this year, I renewed my GPA membership, and I have also been involved with our Chamber of Commerce and our African American Chamber, because I was just working and doing that job. But then about 10 years ago, I decided, let me just try to slowly get back into it. And then this year, just something said, you got to go for it and really try to put some things in place. And so that's where I am now. I've got energy, and really trying to think about all the things that I really can do, instead of just working my 9 to 5, but really doing something for me. I've been writing grants for everybody else that I'm needing to write grants for my own company.
I love that. So yeah, so you had, you knew you had the skill set. You'd been winning federal grants. You've been running them. You understand them inside and out. So when was the point when you said, okay, you know what? I want to have my own business, and I want to be able to offer this to other organizations and not maybe just when I'm full-time employed with, right? So when was kind of that turning point? And was that just in the last year then, or you started side hustling before then and kind of started growing that?
Well, people, because they know that I write grants, everybody wants a grant. So I've been a little discouraged because people want a grant, but a lot of times they don't know how to get a grant. And then when you tell them how to get a grant, it seems too cumbersome for them.
Yeah.
So, I've had a lot of conversations with people. And then at one time I was just like, I'm going to do something else. I'm not going to write grants. And I was under mentorship with another person, and they were saying, this is the thing that you need to do. And they kind of like talked me into really, really thinking more seriously about it. My heart is still for startup companies, faith-based companies, community organizations. The only drawback is that most of the times they don't have money to pay you. So then that gets a little discouraging. But if they're willing to put in the work, then they'll start to generate some revenue. And then, be able to fund someone to help them. So I have resolved that this is the area that I'm supposed to be in, because these are the people who are more attracted to what I do, or when they read my bio and just kind of look at what I'm doing, then those are the people that are drawn to me. But it can be a little discouraging, even though I like writing for foundation grants and programming grants, because another area that I started off with was program development and program evaluations. I've done a lot of program evaluations for community organizations. And so it's not the grant writing, but after the grant has been written and coming up with surveys and questionnaires and really getting the information to prove that what they've done had an impact and that they met their goals. So I'm really good at doing the program evaluation part.
That's a needed service completely. A lot of nonprofits, they do this work and then they have no idea how to evaluate it and how to show the outcomes or the impact. And those are things that funders want, right? Those are things that donors want to see. Those are things that corporate sponsors want to see. So it's really important to have that, because otherwise it may look like you're kind of just spinning your wheels, right? So I think that's definitely a service that's needed, and that's a really good skill set to have, because a lot of grant writers do not have that skill. They have the skill of writing the grant, maybe creating program development, but not necessarily program evaluation. So I love that you can bring that tool as well, and to say, hey, this is something else I can offer and I'm really good at it. So that's wonderful. But so when you were kind of going through this, then what, in the last 30 years, what are some things then that you've seen nonprofits, some of the lessons that maybe they have learned, or maybe that they still need to learn, some kind of, things that we can share with the nonprofits out there?
I think the first thing is to stay focused and motivated. Sometimes, your goals seem so big that you say one thing and then other stuff just keeps coming on. And so what I tried to do is you have to have the strategic plan, and you have to stick with it. And even though it may change, let's do phases. And that keeps people on track. And it also keeps your board members invested. Because sometimes if board members don't see quick movement, then they get tired and feel like you're just going in circles. So I think one of the things that I learned is to really work with the board president and the executive board and just say, look, we've got to show something. If it's just even a small thing, that we're kind of moving forward. So I think that's what I've learned from the nonprofits.
That's so vital. Just to stop you there for a second, that's so vital, because just to kind of drive this point home, the strategic planning, right? It all starts with that. So even before you're talking about grants, right? We're going to get to that in a minute, because I know you're going to share some of those lessons. But it starts with, what is the plan? Do you have buy-in from the people that you need buy-in from, who are, driving it forward, responsible for the organization, i.e. the board, and, are they involved with what's going to happen? And you need to make sure that you can kind of show, like, if you're going to say part of our strategic plan is writing 4 grants this year or whatnot, when is that going to happen? Kind of outline that already, get those things ramped up. So then, like you said, you're focused and you have the buy-in. And when it gets to that time, you're not running around doing 5,000 things and don't have the time to focus on your fundraising or the grant writing or whatever you're going to outline to do. So I love that you start with, hey, first get your strategic planning in order. So that's really good. And can you give any like case studies on organizations that have had their strategic planning really well done that has just flowed, or maybe vice versa, not had it together and it didn't, work out quite well?
Most of my people, because I do a lot with startups,
Yep.
they do have a strategic plan. They don't even understand strategic planning. So I have to go through this whole training with them and getting everybody on board. I'm working with an organization now, and everybody's talking about 1,000,001 things. So, we got to finally sit down and put this strategic plan together. And everything that they're saying, they're good things. They want a training school. They want a K through 6 school. They want to put a church in there. I said, now, wait a minute, people.
It's a 1-year plan. You're really freaking out. No.
I never did. It's like, okay, let's just really look at this. And let's just go through some time and just put this together. And then everybody isn't so frantic, because they want this done, but you got to have a plan. And so I think that is key. Now, when I write grants for the university, we do have a strategic plan. Right. And we know exactly what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And the grants that I write, if they're not the federal grants, then I'm writing other smaller grants that are institutional, but they have to align with the vision of our program and of the university. So I write those smaller grants, but we have an overall goal. So, but in the nonprofit, especially if they are 3 to 5 years, may not have it as solid as organizations that have been around for a long time. And so most of the people I'm working with are in the 3 to 5 years. And so if they have one, it probably needs to be revisited and tightened up, because they have experienced some things and they can see where they're going.
And they're not going to be the same, right? As a university that's been around for so long and has huge capacity, and that's okay. And it's, but then I totally was resonating with you when you talked about like, they want to do this, because I find a lot of like, especially startup nonprofits, they're visionaries, right? And they have these amazing vision and they have like this passion and they're excited. But a lot of time they don't understand the programming yet, right? The time that it takes to build up to get to some of those things. So that's where you come in and say, hey, I can help you set up this strategic plan. So let's get this in place first. So when we go after grants, step maybe 2 or 3, then we understand we're not just chasing money. We can align the right type of funding that fits what we're trying to actually, the vision, right? The strategic plan, what we're trying to do year 1. So I like that example a lot, because I see it quite often, and it's not to shame anyone. It's just to say this is part of the evolution of starting a nonprofit, right? And to kind of, start with all of these amazing dreams and vision, but then you need to organize it and put a timeline that makes sense, right?
And one of the things that I'm experiencing now, which is the first time for me ever to experience this, is that I'm working with an organization that was strong, but the last 2 years, they couldn't do anything because it's more of an arts theater. There was no theater, there was no arts. And so they are chasing money, and it's frustrating for me because they're trying to rebuild, because it was just, they really suffered because it's a community art center. And so that is the other thing that you really have to look at when you're working with these groups, because they have a strategic plan, but right now it's like, we need money. And so you do a lot of little grants for them with hopes that they'll get funded. And then my thing is, when will you ever have enough to really sit down and go with your strategic plan? Because I feel like we're on this spinning wheel with every grant that comes out that people tell you about, you're ready to kind of put something together for it. So
right. Or other strategies potentially, right? Like how do you get more sponsors or donors, or, you know, diversifying your funding stream so you're not chasing the money as much, right? Like so you're being able to focus more. So yeah, that's an interesting situation. And I know that's impacted a lot of organizations, you know, through COVID, that, you know, traditionally they didn't maybe have any issues with grants, and now the priorities have shifted, and, you know, they're kind of like, what do we do? So, you know, rethinking that. So it's good they have your expertise on that to say, let's kind of rethink this, let's re-strategize, you know, and come up with something. So that's good. Yeah. So yeah, what are some of your, is that kind of what you would redirect them to? Is, should we reanalyze that strategic plan then? Should we, you know, like what, how have you been working with them to get them off that trajectory of maybe chasing the money, right? So,
right. Well, you know, I've been having conversations with them, and so we're going to try to have a session where we're going to go back and look at what they've already done, and where they really want to go with how things have changed and shifted, because some of the things that they had on there, I don't think they're going to do anymore. So, you know, we've got to look at some different things. But it's been interesting. It really has. I like it that they haven't given up, because some people have just shut completely down. But what they can do, they're still trying to do. And the community is really open to them. This is an organization where I really see relationships being key, because the funders are sending them applications and sending them. But I still feel like it's chasing money, because they say, here's another one, here's another one. And I'm just like, we need to really kind of sit down and really think about this. So sometimes it's helpful, and then other times, you know, you do have to just step back.
Right.
And do some
and I like that, because not every grant you should say yes to, right? And I think that's a really important note that you're bringing up, is even if your funding sources may think it's a good one, it may not be, or they might just kind of be pulling something that of their relationships, but it may not be the best fit for you. So applying for every grant isn't really the answer, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It can burn out grant writers. It can burn out your strategy, your focus, right? And because your probability of getting yeses may be very low, and it's a lot of time to write the applications. Or if you get yeses, you might have to do things that you don't necessarily want to do, that pulls you away from your focus.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. So I like that you brought that up. So those are some great lessons, you guys. So nonprofits out there, you know, that strategic plan do you even know what it is? Like, even if you threw one together, like reanalyzing that and really understanding it. And then also just realizing you don't have to go after every grant. Make sure it's a really good fit. And relationships are key, right, to moving things along. So now that we kind of like pointed out some lessons learned for nonprofits, I would kind of want to turn the attention now to those freelance grant writers out there, those people who may be thinking about starting a consultancy. And I want you to share some of how you know, you've started your business and what really give you the motivation to do it. And then also like just some of your lessons learned from starting a business as well.
Okay. I think because people were asking me to write grants. Once I, you know, started off and helped them to set their organizations up, and they have everything that in place, then I was like, okay, well, let's kind of, you know, write a grant or two in a foundation. because really with startups, I try to do a foundation grant first. Most of the times they want a federal grant, but they don't have
Right.
the backing for that. But let's just start off small. So I did that before even starting the business because I, had a couple people who had been doing the work and had a 501c3. So I knew that they were established. So I helped them with writing grants. And then I started off with not really making a lot of money, but just wanting the experience.
Right.
Not that I'm making a lot of money now, but, getting that experience. Right. And so once I did it, I think one of the things that I feel pressure with is that you write it, and then if you don't get it, then, I feel bad for the organization and they're all on it. So that's a nervous time. Submitting it and waiting is something that I hate waiting.
Yeah, all grant writers suffer. Although we know that even if it doesn't get funded, there are so many good things that come out of writing a grant.
Right, and it does. It does. It does. And it benefits the organization too, because they know a little more than they knew before. So the next one, they can put some different things in there. So I did that probably for about 10 years. And then in 2012, I decided to do an LLC. So I just launched out, did Spirit Excel LLC. I'm in Kentucky, but I also do work in Ohio. And just started putting things out there. I think my biggest issue, and the issue that I'm still working with, is just marketing the company and doing what's necessary from the social media. And my thing is, you got to be intentional and you got to do it. And I'm not as intentional in doing that. So I have a goal for next year to be more intentional. And I mean, just really, I love calendars and I love charts. So I can put it on the chart and do it like that, then I think I will be more consistent.
Well, you definitely are. Look at you already on podcasts, so getting out there and getting more marketing. So this is already good for you.
Yeah. And so it's the marketing. And then I think the other thing is follow up with your former clients.
Ah, yes.
And I think that is key. And I am trying to do that even more because former clients like what I did for them. So there are other things that they want. And so really being able to follow up with them, and then they can make some referrals for you. And so I think that's a big thing for me, and networking. And I'm an introvert, so I have really had to push myself and get out there. So going to these networking events and activities. And I don't know why. I know a lot of people, and that's the funny part about it. I know a lot of the people in these areas, but I'm still, just a little shy, but I'm pushing myself out there because once I set a goal, I tend to accomplish all that I set out to do. So
yes,
that's what I've learned from the business standpoint.
I love that. And I love that, it's funny because you mentioned you're an introvert, and a lot of people, freelance grant writers and grant writers just that I know, they are introverts. They like to be able to write the grants on the back end. They don't need all the flashy like in the front, right? They like to do that, and it's an interesting mix. And then they cut to the marketing part of their businesses, and they're like, oh, But there's so many ways, just like you mentioned, people you already know, previous clients. Those are some of the best places to tap into for new work, right? And that's kind of like that easier for introvert, right, to have those already relationships. So I love the work that you're doing, and that you started your business. It's 12 or 10 years strong now, so happy 10th year. So you said 2012 you kicked it off, and then you joined the mentorship last year. So how has the mentorship really, the Grant Professional Mentorship that we offer here, how has that really inspired your business or impacted your business in the last year, or your personal development and growth?
It has been wonderful. I think the first thing is just opportunities. The opportunity to be on the referred or preferred grant listing. I've had several people contact me from that. Doing this podcast is another thing. Just the networking with the women that are in the group. I find that has been very rewarding. I'm listening to everybody and just seeing where they are. And we all have very different backgrounds. And I just really like that opportunity of meeting those people, hearing what they say, how they are working their business. I like that. And then just the mentorship with you. And how whenever I've asked you about something, you respond, and that has really been helpful. And I finally came to the conclusion that even though I mentor other people, I need to be mentored. And a lot of times people don't recognize that. And I have finally come to that conclusion that I need to be in a mentoring relationship. And so this has been the best thing for me.
Oh, I love that. I love that too, because I'm with you. I run a mentorship group, but I'm also in a mastermind. I also get mentored, right? You know what I mean? So, and I think like coaches need coaches, and it's just a part of it. Like we all need that. So I love that, that you give and you get, right? So it's a reciprocal kind of relationship.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up. Yeah. So in the Grant Professional Mentorship, one of the benefits that you get is the ability, I vet your grant writing, and then you get on my website to be a grant writer for hire. So that's a great opportunity for those in the mentorship to get people looking at your, finding you, right? So maybe you have a website, maybe you don't have a website. I do a lot of SEO work on my website. So people come looking for grant writers, and I don't write many grants at all anymore. I do more training. So this gives me an opportunity to say, hey, you may be looking for a grant writer. Here's some people that I have vetted that you can hire. So you've definitely had some interviews from that, right? From being on the website. Yes.
Yeah. So it's exciting. It's exciting. I'm really thinking that next year, some of that is going to take place. So I'm excited about it.
That's awesome. I love that. And getting out there and networking more, marketing. And you've also recently done a video series. You started a video series as well. You got your tripod behind you. So I know we've been working on that, and you'll be releasing that soon to all of the folks, right? To talk. And what is your video series based on? Can you kind of share some of the
It's gonna be on leadership. I'm even reframing it. It's the 31 leadership skills for nonprofits and grant writers. So it's going to encompass the world that I'm in right now, and utilizing those leadership skills, because you really do have to put in some work with helping to build nonprofit leaders. They may have a lot of experience, but there is something with someone sharing them nuggets that can help them move them to the next level. And I think we as consultants, we can do that for people, and they can really see. And there are simple things that we tend to forget about that, I'm just going to try to kind of rekindle that or ignite that in people.
That you really bring up a very interesting point, Cheri, that I haven't really thought about before, but it's really true, is as a consultant, especially as a grant writing consultant working with nonprofits, you do need to have leadership skills. And that's funny, I've never really put it together, out there so solidly, but that's so true, because every time I've gone into a meeting, you're working with boards, you're working with presidents, you're working with people that are our leaders, and they're looking to you to facilitate.
We're the experts.
Yes.
We know what to do. And
yeah.
And it is a leadership, because they're looking at you. I had the interview with someone off of your and I was sitting there, they were asking me all these questions, and I was like, you all are leaders too, but you're asking me to tell you, and then they're taking notes and everything. And I was like, yeah, I'm a leader. And we give out the information. So, and it was simple. It was simple things too. So we are leaders.
Yeah, that's such a good epiphany. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that, because it's so true. It's like, I've had senators on my training before. I've had, and you're like, okay, you're like, I'm just a writer, but we are leaders. We are facilitating information. We're doing training. We're kind of giving direction and advice, and we are really helping lead that organization, right? We're kind of, once again, kind of that mentorship relationship. Those leaders are kind of looking to us for that kind of mentoring, as we are the experts in nonprofit management or grant writing or whatever the skill is you bring to the table, right?
And we have businesses too.
Yeah.
And so we have to operate in those businesses the same way that they operate in theirs. Mm-hmm. That's what I learned from you.
Yes, you're a business leader.
In our businesses the way they operate in theirs. And mm-hmm. So that's another thing that I'm tightening up, is the budget, and really working on that this year. So I have gained so much from this year. Awesome. It has really motivated me, and really helped me to appreciate the skills and what I have learned over the years, to really appreciate it. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Because sometimes you can do stuff for so long that you just take it for granted. And now I'm not taking it for granted as much as I used to.
Oh, I love that. And you shouldn't. You should be very proud of yourself, because when you first came in the mentorship, I remember we were talking about tech, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed. And then a few months later, you're like, yep, I got a videographer. I'm doing all this thing. I got my website, boom, 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 totally different person, as far as the overwhelm was gone. Right. Mm-hmm. And it was just that mindset shift that we all were like, yay, we all saw. And it was amazing to say that. Is that something that you've really walked away with this year, to say, wow, I don't feel as stressed, or maybe some of that overwhelm is gone?
Yes. And I just want to mention the other thing is the book club.
Yes.
The mm-hmm. books have been wonderful. And this last book that we've done, it's about a paradigm shift. And I love that book. So it's not only the networking, but we are getting professional development through the book series and through talking about those. So it has been great. It really
yeah, I know you guys are wondering, what's the book that we just read? We just read The Big Leap. So that was really good, by Gay Hendricks. So that amazing book. Yeah, it's changed. I've read that probably 3 times. I needed to make sure I had it in the mentorship this year. So it's changed my life. Such a profound book. So I'm so glad that you got so much out of that, because we need to work on our professional development, right? And as a business leader, a lot of it's on confidence. It's on, changing your mindset. It's on coming into the room and saying, okay, I value myself, right? Those types of things. And we don't just learn those sometimes just, through life. We have to be very intentional with that. So yeah, I absolutely love that. So thanks so much, Cheri, for coming on. Before we close out today, I just want to go ahead and share then, you shared some of your services that you do offer in your business, Spirit Excel. And people can definitely go to spiritexcel.org to check out more to the show notes for today. But just go ahead and share, like, what are some of the services you offer? If people heard you today and they're like, man, I just resonate with her. I have a community-based nonprofit, or I have a faith-based nonprofit or a startup, and I want to see if Cheri's available. What kind of services do you offer right now?
Right now, in the grant writing area, it's grant research, doing the actual grant writing, possibly even some grant management, because there is a way that you really need to manage your grant in order to get refunded, or in order to do the reporting that goes with especially federal grants. I also work with program development and program evaluation. And then lastly, just organizational consulting, and that would be the strategic planning, the fund planning, audit wellness, audits for organization, those types of things. Now, I do an online free workshop on just grant writing basics.
Nice.
And it's a 60-minute workshop that I will be doing in February. And I'm hoping to offer it like every other month, because people have been asking me for just basics. So I am going to do that starting in February. And so you can check my website and that information will be on there. And then I am in the process of developing a 6 to 8 weeks grant writing workshop that I'll be offering for a fee.
Nice.
So that's coming. Look forward to that.
I love that. So we'll definitely have the link to your website and all the things in the show notes so people can find that and sign up to get on that wait list for those webinars or for the training, or just to access your services and talk to you directly about what you do and how you can maybe help their organization. So yes. So once again, Dr. Cheri Westmoreland with Spirit Excel, thank you so much for being in our mentorship. Again, you've just been such a huge value to other folks in there. The feedback you give is amazing. And I am just so encouraged to see the growth in your business and just, how you've been reaching the world and helping nonprofits. It's really inspiring. So thank you for coming on the Grant Writing and Funding podcast today and sharing your knowledge and expertise with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah. We'll see you soon.
Okay. All right.